Hey folks, I'm happy. Out here in the American wilderness, surrounded by 50 years of whispering pines and my loyal wild animal friends, you learn to see through people's masks. Nature doesn't lie, but humans? Well, they're experts at it. Today, I'm bringing you a wild tale from the concrete jungle of the elite. It's about Ethan, a tech billionaire who thought he ruled the world, and his brilliant wife Olivia, the silent force behind his success. When he betrays her for a cunning mistress, the ultimate game of karma begins, leading to a love he never deserved. Where are you listening to this story from tonight? Drop your location in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button to join our campfire. The midnight neon of Seattle bled into the heavy rains, reflecting off the dark, churning waters of Lake Washington. A sharp, icy wind whipped through the towering Douglas firs surrounding the Vance estate, a sprawling architectural marvel of concrete, glass, and steel. Inside the masterfully insulated compound, however, the tempest outside was reduced to a faint, rhythmic thrum against the triple-paned windows. The sleek, obsidian frame of the custom Aston Martin Vantage glided up the private, cobblestone driveway, its headlights cutting through the Pacific Northwest deluge. Ethan Vance stepped out of the vehicle, adjusting the collar of his bespoke Brioni overcoat. At 34, Ethan was the quintessential golden boy of Silicon Canal. Tall, athletically built from years of rowing at Stanford, with sharp, symmetrical features and a jawline that seemed carved to project unshakable authority. His dark hair was meticulously styled, unaffected by the damp air, and his piercing hazel eyes gleamed with the dangerous high of absolute victory. He was a man who believed the universe revolved around his intellect. He had just spent the last 7 days in a sun-drenched, snow-capped paradise in Aspen, ostensibly for a high-level logistics summit, but realistically locked inside a luxury chalet with Chloe Vane. Chloe was a 26-year-old marketing director whose sharp, cat-like blue eyes and cascading platinum blonde hair had captured Ethan's attention months ago. She was fierce, ruthlessly ambitious, and possessed a deceptive, honeyed charm that fed Ethan's insatiable ego. She made him feel like a god, a stark contrast to the quiet, grounding presence of his wife. To Ethan, his life was flawless. His company, Vance Logistics, had just secured a multi-billion-dollar exclusive defense contract with the federal government. He had the power, he had the mistress, and he had the world in the palm of his hand. As Ethan stepped into the cavernous, minimalist foyer, the air felt strangely sterile. The heated Italian travertine floors beneath his handmade leather shoes felt unusually cold. There was no welcoming bark from Barnaby, their 9-year-old golden retriever. Barnaby was a massive, gentle animal with a coat the color of toasted wheat and soulful, intelligent eyes. Tonight, the old dog was curled tightly in the far corner of the living room, his ears pinned back, sensing a shift in the domestic atmosphere that Ethan's arrogance blinded him to. Sitting on the low-profile, charcoal velvet sofa in the center of the sunken living room was Olivia Vance. At 33, Olivia possessed a striking, ethereal beauty that required no effort, tall and slender, with ivory skin and midnight black hair tied back into a loose, elegant knot at the nape of her neck. Her deep gray eyes, usually warm and welcoming, were pools of absolute frozen stillness. Olivia had always been a woman of quiet, formidable intellect. She was a master strategist with a degree in applied mathematics from MIT, though she had willingly chosen to let Ethan occupy the public spotlight. The sudden passing of her father 3 years ago had hardened her gentle nature, leaving her with a profound, unshakable resilience. On the marble coffee table before her lay a single, slender navy blue leather folder. "You're up late, Liv," Ethan said, his voice a smooth, calculated baritone designed to exude warmth while masking his exhaustion. He tossed his keys onto the console table, already formulating his pre-scripted lies about delayed flights and bureaucratic gridlock. "The storm in Denver delayed us for hours. I told you not to wait up." "Stop, Ethan," Olivia said. Her voice did not shake. It was a flat, clinical cadence that severed his practiced excuse mid-air. "Do not waste your breath on another lie. Not tonight." Ethan froze, his hand hovering over his tie. A prickle of irritation broke through his smug satisfaction. "What is this? Are we doing this again? I just signed the biggest contract in the history of this state, and I come home to an interrogation?" Olivia turned her gaze directly to him. The sheer absence of tears in her eyes sent a phantom chill down his spine. "I know about Aspen, Ethan. I know about the chalet on Red Mountain. I know about Chloe Vane. And I know she has been on your corporate payroll as a consultant for the past 8 months. The name hit the room like a sudden drop in cabin pressure. Ethan's mind raced, his arrogance instantly restructuring his defense. It was a mistake, Olivia. A temporary distraction. It means nothing. It has nothing to do with what we've built here, with my success. Your success? Olivia whispered. And for the first time, a ghost of a bitter smile touched her lips. As she looked at him, her mind drifted back 7 years to a cramped, drafty studio apartment in rain-soaked downtown Seattle. Ethan had been a brilliant but chaotic programmer, drowning in broken algorithms and facing imminent bankruptcy. He never knew that the anonymous open-source contributor under the handle S. Sterling, the one who spent 3 sleepless weeks completely rewriting his flawed neural network architecture and patching the critical bugs, was actually Olivia. She had given him the very brain of Vance Logistics, stepping into the shadows so his pride could flourish. She had built his pedestal, and he had mistaken it for his own wings. You think you built this kingdom alone, Ethan? Olivia said softly, sliding the navy folder across the marble table. You forgot who wrote the foundation. Inside that folder is a petition for the dissolution of our marriage. Ethan stared at the document, and then a loud, arrogant laugh erupted from his chest, echoing hollowly off the concrete walls. Ly hôn, anh đang mơ à, Olivia? Cỡ như cô chỉ là một bà nội trợ ăn bám, quanh quẩn trong xóm thượng lưu này nhờ cái danh Vance. Cô nghĩ cô là ai? Bước ra khỏi cánh cửa này, cô sẽ không nhận được một xu tài sản nào hết. Tôi sẽ dùng đội ngũ luật sư của tập đoàn để phong tỏa mọi thứ. Cô sẽ ra đi với 2 bàn tay trắng. While Ethan's mockery filled the room, thousands of miles away in a high-rise office building in Manhattan, New York, a phone vibrated on a massive mahogany desk. Liam Sterling picked it up on the first ring. At 35, Liam was a titan of East Coast investment banking, powerfully built, with sharp, aristocratic features, dark blonde hair, and intense, calculating blue eyes. He was a man whose name was whispered with immense respect in the financial corridors of Wall Street. He had loved Olivia silently since they were children, stepping back only when she chose Ethan. The moment he heard Olivia's calm, steady voice on the line saying, "Liam, it's time," his entire demeanor shifted into that of a predator ready for war. Without a second thought, Liam stood up, interrupting a high-stakes board meeting regarding a $500 million acquisition. He looked at his stunned executives and uttered a single command. Meeting is adjourned. Walking briskly down the corridor, he dialed his private pilot. Get the Gulfstream ready. We are flying to Seattle tonight. Now. Back in the lakefront mansion, Olivia watched her husband's mocking laughter die down, her gray eyes reflecting nothing but the cold, incoming tide of his imminent destruction. Ethan's mocking laughter still vibrated against the minimalist concrete walls, his face contorted into a mask of pure, unadulterated arrogance as he stared down at his wife. You have nothing, Olivia, he sneered, taking a predatory step toward the marble coffee table, his hand waving dismissively through the air. I built the Vance name. I built the infrastructure. If you think you can just walk away with a chunk of my empire based on some delusion of grandeur, I will unleash a media storm that will paint you as an unstable, money-hungry fraud before sunrise. Every asset, every account you even think you have access to will be frozen by my legal team before the courts even open. He paused, expecting Olivia to flinch, to weep, or to beg for negotiation. Instead, the profound stillness in her gray eyes remained completely unbroken, an eerie calm before the true storm hit. The heavy, soundproofed oak front doors of the estate suddenly groaned open, shifting the atmospheric pressure within the cavernous foyer. The sound of confident, synchronized footsteps echoed across the Italian travertine floor, instantly shattering Ethan's illusion of control. Emerging from the shadows of the hallway was Liam Sterling, his imposing 6'2" frame radiating a quiet, lethal authority that made the spacious living room feel suddenly microscopic. He had traded his travel-worn overcoat for a perfectly tailored midnight blue Savile Row suit that accentuated his broad shoulders and commanding presence. Flanking him were 3 senior legal minds from Full Wall, led by Arthur Pendleton, a legendary 60-year-old litigation shark with predatory silver hair, piercing icy blue eyes, and a notorious reputation for dismantling corporate empires without breaking a sweat. Behind them walked Maya Lin, Liam's fiercely efficient 28-year-old executive assistant, a petite woman with sharp, dark eyes, an asymmetric bob, and a perpetually analytical expression, her fingers already dancing across an encrypted tablet. Before Ethan could even process the intrusion, Liam strode past him, treating the tech billionaire as nothing more than a minor inconvenience, and stopped directly beside Olivia's sofa. He placed a supportive, reassuring hand on her shoulder, his intense blue eyes softening for a fraction of a second as he looked down at her. Turn around to face Ethan. Liam's expression hardened into a gaze of absolute frost. With a fluid, synchronized movement, Arthur Pendleton stepped forward, and Nem Len Ban, Motup Barn Sao, Kak Chung Tu Barmut Zai Cope, the heavy paper hitting the marble coffee table with a definitive, menacing thud right next to Olivia's navy blue folder. What the hell is the meaning of this, Sterling? Ethan barked, his hazel eyes flashing with a volatile mix of confusion and defensive rage as he looked between Liam and the high-powered lawyers. This is my private residence. You can't just march in here with Wall Street sharks and expect to intimidate me. Olivia is my wife, and whatever domestic dispute we have has nothing to do with your investment firm. It has everything to do with me, Ethan, because you have spent the last 7 years parasite feeding off the brilliance of the woman standing right next to me, Liam replied, his baritone voice dangerously calm, vibrating with an icy undertone that instantly silenced Ethan's outbursts. Liam gestured downward at the Namlin Banbarn Sao Kak Chung Tu Barmut. Open it, Ethan. Look at the ghosts that have been keeping your pathetic little kingdom afloat. With trembling fingers, his heart beginning to hammer violently against his ribs, Ethan reached down and tore open the first security seal. His eyes scanned the heavy cream pages, and the blood instantly drained from his face, leaving his skin a pale, sickly gray. The documents before him detailed the complete financial history of Vance Logistics, specifically the foundational angel investments that had miraculously rescued his company from a catastrophic bankruptcy during its second year of operation. The anonymous offshore venture funds, Vanguard Capital, Crescent Holdings, and Odyssey Trust, were all shell companies legally owned, funded, and controlled by Olivia Sterling Vance. But the true, devastating blow was on the final page. The ultra-secretive S Group, the powerful private equity fund that had single-handedly orchestrated, financed, and secured the multi-billion-dollar exclusive government defense contract just last week, was entirely owned by Olivia, managed through Liam's elite financial network. The very contract Ethan believed was the crown jewel of his personal genius was actually a gift engineered by the wife he had just threatened to ruin. Ethan staggered back a step, the reality of his complete financial dependency crashing down on his mind like a physical blow. This is impossible, he stammered, his unshakable authority evaporating into thin air as his hazel eyes darted frantically across the irrefutable signatures. You set me up! Olivia, you played me from the very beginning. He looked up, his panic curdling into a desperate, malicious sneer as he locked eyes with Liam. I see what this is now. How pathetic, Olivia. The moment my back is turned, you run straight to your childhood pet. Tell me, Sterling, is this what you do now? Swooping in like a desperate vulture to comfort my wife when she throws a tantrum? How long have the two of you been plotting this behind my back while you pretend to be my friend? Liam didn't flinch at the disgusting insinuation. Instead, he stepped forward, his massive frame completely eclipsing Ethan's presence in the room, his jaw tightly clenched as his cold fury radiated outward. Keep your mouth shut, Ethan, Liam said, his voice dropping to a low, lethal whisper that carried the terrifying force of a hurricane. Do not project your own cheap, unfaithful depravity onto a woman whose shadow you are not worthy to walk in. Olivia spent 7 years hiding her own genius, protecting your fragile, pathetic ego so you could play the big, successful tech mogul for the cameras. She gave you an empire out of love, and you repaid her with betrayal in Aspen. You think you can ruin her with your lawyers and media? Every single dollar that pumps through Vance Logistics belongs to her. You don't own that company, Ethan. You are just an employee who got arrogant. While the psychological warfare intensified in the center of the living room, Maya Lin remained standing near the travertine pillars, her sharp eyes completely locked onto her encrypted tablet as she monitored live data streams and financial intercepts. Suddenly, a high-priority alert flashed crimson across her screen, causing her dark eyes to widen slightly with professional intrigue. She tapped a sequence of keys, tracing a series of highly irregular, cross-border wire transfers that had bypassed standard reporting protocols just 20 minutes prior. Maya stepped forward quietly, leaning slightly toward Liam and Olivia, her voice low and clinical as she interrupted the heavy silence. Mr. Sterling, Mrs. Vance, we have a significant anomaly on the secondary feeds. My sweep of local corporate proxies just detected a hidden, non-disclosed international bank account registered under an offshore shell entity in the Cayman Islands. The sole beneficial owner is Chloe Vane. Olivia shifted her gray eyes toward Maya, her expression analytical. What is the source of the funds, Maya? The account just received a massive, multi-million-dollar structured wire transfer, Maya reported, her fingers tapping the screen to bring up the encrypted routing numbers. The originating entity is a primary capital pool directly tied to the Apex Corporation, Ethan's absolute fiercest market competitor in the logistics sector. It appears Miss Vane has been receiving substantial financial compensation from the very people trying to destroy Vance Logistics. Ethan's breath hitched in his throat as the words echoed through the room, a cold dread creeping up his spine, as he realized the web of deception was far larger and far more dangerous than his simple affair. The revelation of Chloe's financial ties to Apex Corporation hung in the air like poison, but Olivia did not wait for Ethan to formulate another desperate defense. With a cold, methodical precision, she reached into her bag and pulled out a sleek, titanium-encrypted drive, passing it directly to Arthur Pendleton. "Revoke the licensing agreements, Arthur," Olivia commanded, her gray eyes reflecting the absolute finality of her decision. The core AI logistics algorithms, the neural routing architecture, and every patent under Sterling Tech Holdings are officially withdrawn from Vance Logistics effective immediately. Within 90 seconds, as Pendleton's team executed the ironclad legal injections, a global digital execution took place. The core intellectual property that Olivia had registered under her own private company long before she ever walked down the aisle with Ethan, was completely severed from the Vance servers. The catastrophic fallout was instantaneous. Across the United States, from the bustling docks of Los Angeles to the massive shipping hubs of Newark, the entire infrastructure of Vance Logistics choked and died. Automated container cranes froze midair, tracking grids blacked out on every terminal screen, and hundreds of cargo ships were suddenly frozen at major ports, unable to move without the predictive AI docking coordinates. In the sunken living room, Ethan's personal phone began to detonate with panicked alerts, flashing crimson text messages from his operations room. He scrambled to his feet, trembling as he answered a call from Marcus Vance, his 29-year-old cousin and chief technology officer. Marcus was a brilliant but high-strung engineer with a pale, perpetually sweaty complexion, disheveled curly red hair, and a frantic demeanor that worsened under the slightest pressure. "Ethan, the entire central network has just defaulted to an encrypted master lock." Marcus screamed through the receiver, his voice cracking with sheer terror. "The system is shedding data by the terabyte. Our senior engineers are throwing everything they have at it, but the baseline code has vanished. It's asking for a core administrative security key that doesn't exist in our directory. We are entirely blind out here." Ethan locked eyes with Olivia, his heart plummeting into his stomach as the horrific truth finally solidified in his mind. He was never the genius architect of Silicon Canal. He was merely the hollow, polished face of the empire. The true brain, the silent god in the machine, was his wife. Before Ethan could utter a single word of forced apology or rage, Liam gently took Olivia's arm, guiding her past the frozen tech mogul and out of the lakefront estate into the stormy Seattle night. They boarded Liam's private Gulfstream jet, leaving the chaos behind as they soared high above the storm clouds, bound for New York City. By the time the sun began to rise over the Manhattan skyline, Liam had escorted Olivia into his sprawling, multi-level penthouse, overlooking the mist-shrouded expanse of Central Park. The interior of the penthouse was a warm, sunlit sanctuary of soft cream linens, rich oak wood, and floor-to-ceiling glass that muted the roar of the city below. Waiting at the entrance to greet them was Mrs. Higgins, Liam's 65-year-old housekeeper, a stout, maternal woman with kind crinkles around her hazel eyes, gray hair tucked into a neat bun, and a gentle, fiercely protective personality toward Liam and anyone he cared about. She immediately whisked away Olivia's damp coat, offering a soft, sympathetic smile before retreating to prepare a quiet room. Liam refused to let Olivia lift a finger, insisting that she rest her exhausted mind on the plush sofa. Leaving the corporate warfare to his attorneys, Liam rolled up the sleeves of his white shirt and went into the kitchen to hand-prepare a sensory haven for her. He carefully brewed a pot of rare Earl Grey tea and cooked a comforting, artisanal truffle wild mushroom risotto, the exact dish Olivia had loved during their university days in Boston whenever she was overwhelmed by exams. He brought the tray to her, sitting quietly on the opposite side of the sofa, giving her the space and peace she had been denied for 7 long years. As Olivia took a slow, quiet bite, the rich, familiar flavors seemed to melt away a layer of the icy armor she had worn all night, and a genuine, fragile warmth began to return to her tired eyes. For the first time in nearly a decade, she was not a shield for someone else's fragile ego. She was being fiercely, unconditionally protected by a man who saw her true worth. Meanwhile, back in New York's elite Upper East Side, the reality of the digital collapse was actively destroying Ethan's public life. Desperate for comfort, reassurance, and a temporary escape from the terrifying financial hemorrhage, Ethan practically kicked open the door to Chloe Vance's luxury high-rise apartment. He expected his fiercely ambitious, platinum blonde mistress to throw her arms around him, to pour him a drink, and to offer her usual honeyed reassurances of his undisputed genius. Instead, he found Chloe standing in her minimalist kitchen, her cat-like blue eyes completely glued to a large television screen displaying the live financial news tickers. The anchor's voice cut through the apartment like a razor, announcing that trading for Vance Logistics had been halted on the New York Stock Exchange after the stock price entered a terrifying, unmitigated freefall, plummeting 45% in a matter of hours. Chloe turned her head slowly toward Ethan, her beautifully sculpted features completely devoid of the warmth and submissive adoration she had performed so flawlessly in Aspen. Her posture was stiff, her arms crossed defensively over her designer silk blouse as she looked at his disheveled appearance with a clinical, unmistakable coldness. "What is going on, Ethan?" Chloe demanded, her voice sharp, stripped of its usual sweet, breathless cadence. "The entire market is saying that your platform is completely dead. Apex Corporation just released a statement claiming they are ready to absorb your clients by noon. You told me you owned that defense contract. You told me your algorithms were bulletproof." Ethan stepped forward, trying to grab her hand, but Chloe, subtly yet firmly, took a step back, avoiding his touch entirely. Her calculated mind was already realizing that the golden boy of tech was rapidly turning into a bankrupt liability, and her survival instincts were far stronger than her superficial loyalty to a falling king. Ethan paced frantically across Chloe's minimalist living room, his fingers pulling at his hair as his corporate empire continued to bleed out on live television. Seeing his unhinged desperation, Chloe's cat-like eyes glinted with a sharp, calculated opportunism. She stepped forward, her rigid posture melting into a manufactured, honeyed softness as she placed a gentle hand on his trembling shoulder. "Ethan, listen to me," she whispered, her voice adopting a breathless, urgent cadence. "Vance Logistics is paralyzed, but you still have liquid capital. There is an underground, highly exclusive algorithmic cryptocurrency project called Ethelgard. I have direct access to the facilitators. If you liquefy your remaining personal stocks and offshore reserves right now, we can dump everything into this token, ride the massive artificial surge, and cash out with enough liquidity to buy back your server infrastructure independently. It's your only lifeline." Blindfolded by his primal fear of bankruptcy, Ethan did not see the predatory smile twitching at the corner of her lips. He immediately opened his encrypted laptop, authorizing the rapid liquidation of his remaining personal assets, pouring every single dollar he had left, nearly $80 million, into the digital wallet address Chloe provided. What Ethan's monumental arrogance prevented him from realizing was that the entire Ethelgard project was a phantom, an intricate digital mirror maze meticulously engineered by Olivia and executed through Liam's elite financial networks. They had purposefully dangled the fake opportunity before Chloe weeks ago, knowing her insatiable greed and shifting loyalties would make her weaponize it against Ethan the moment his kingdom cracked. The absolute second the transfer was finalized, Chloe excused herself to the master suite. Sitting on the edge of the plush bed was her pet, a purebred 3-year-old Persian cat named Cleo, a pristine white, extraordinarily fluffy animal with a perpetually grumpy flat face, judgmental copper eyes, and a highly spoiled temperament that mirrored her owner's cold vanity. Chloe completely ignored the cat's low purr, her manicured fingers flying across her phone as she intercepted the digital wallet. Instead of holding the funds, she executed a prearranged, multi-layered transaction that quom sach sotiendar and funneled the entire $80 million directly into a private corporate custody account belonging to the Apex Corporation. Chloe had officially jumped ship, abandoning Ethan to secure her own luxurious future as a high-ranking executive within the rival firm, leaving a hollowed-out carcass of a billionaire behind. The devastating double-cross was finalized when Ethan's phone chimed with an encrypted video file sent from an unlisted New York number. With a sickening knot tightening in his stomach, Ethan pressed play. The high-definition surveillance footage, captured just 48 hours prior by Liam's security detail, showed Chloe inside a dimly lit VIP lounge at an elite Manhattan club. She was sitting closely with Trent Sterling, no relation to Liam, the 50-year-old CEO of Apex Corporation. Trent was a notoriously ruthless corporate raider with a silver, slick-back undercut, sharp, hawkish features, and a smug, sociopathic aura of a man who enjoyed destroying lives for sport. The video captured Chloe, laughing softly, as she handed Trent a flash drive containing the internal client registries of Vance Logistics, before leaning in to kiss him. A cold, suffocating wave of nausea washed over Ethan as the video ended, followed by a stark text message from Liam. "She never loved you, Ethan. You sacrificed Olivia for a parasite who traded your life for an Apex paycheck." Ethan dropped his phone onto the floor, his knees giving out as he collapsed onto the carpet. He was completely ruined, trapped under a mountain of sudden corporate debt, and left entirely exposed to an imminent, catastrophic investigation from the Securities and Exchange Commission for illegal asset liquidation and suspected insider market manipulation. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in New York City, the oppressive atmosphere of betrayal was entirely absent. The late-night rain had cleared, leaving the massive metropolis glistening beneath a clear, star-studded sky. Inside the quiet, warm sanctuary of the multi-level penthouse, Olivia stood by the floor-to-ceiling glass windows, her deep gray eyes calmly watching the soft amber lights illuminating the vast, peaceful expanse of Central Park below. The heavy burdens of her 7-year marriage had finally been lifted, replaced by a profound, serene sense of liberation. Liam walked into the room silently, holding 2 glasses of sparkling water infused with fresh mint. He approached her slowly, his commanding 6'2" frame radiating a gentle, protective warmth that completely filled the quiet space between them. He handed her a glass, his intense blue eyes locked onto her profile with an emotion he had forcefully suppressed for a decade. "You did it, Liv," Liam said softly, his deep baritone vibrating with a rare, raw vulnerability. "The foundation is secure. He can never hurt you or take credit for your genius ever again." Olivia turned to look at him, a genuine, soft smile gracing her lips, her ivory skin glowing beneath the soft, dim, ambient lighting of the penthouse. Liam took a slow, deliberate breath, stepping closer until the space between them vanished. He reached down, his large, warm hand gently enveloping hers. "I have spent the last 10 years watching you from the shadows, Olivia," he confessed, his voice thick with a decade of unspoken devotion. "I watched you build an empire for a man who didn't know how to cherish you, and it broke me every single day. I stepped away because I thought it was what you wanted, but I am not stepping away anymore. I don't want to just be the person who helps you fight your wars. I want to spend the rest of my life honoring your mind, protecting your heart, and making sure you never have to stand alone against the storm. Let me take care of you, Olivia, fully, unconditionally." Olivia looked into his fierce, unshakable blue eyes, seeing a lifetime of absolute loyalty and truth. Tears of profound relief and joy welled in her eyes, and with a soft, emotional laugh, she nodded her head, her fingers tightening around his as she finally opened her heart to a beautiful, deserving future. The relentless machinery of federal law and financial ruin left no room for Ethan Vance to recover. Within days of his disastrous cryptocurrency transfer, the Securities and Exchange Commission, coordinated with federal liquidation agents, swooped down on his life like a flock of vultures. Ethan Vance, Chin Thirk Tween Bor, Fa Sarn, as the remnants of Vance Logistics collapsed under an unpayable mountain of debt and systemic failures. The sprawling lakefront architectural marvel of concrete and glass in Seattle was heavily chained, slapped with cold government seizure notices, while his custom obsidian Aston Martin Vantage was towed away on a flatbed, stripped from him to satisfy a fraction of his defrauded creditors. Left with nothing but a crumbling reputation, a battered suitcase, and a mind fractured by sudden poverty, Ethan bought a cheap commercial flight ticket to New York City. He was a desperate, broken man driven by a delusional belief that he could still manipulate the one woman who had always saved him from his own failures. He managed to track Olivia to the high-security corporate tower of Sterling Investments in Midtown Manhattan. Standing at the front desk was Agent Vance, no relation to Ethan, a 45-year-old head of building security, a broad-shouldered, barrel-chested former Marine with a severe buzz cut, a jagged scar cutting through his left eyebrow, and an utterly humorless, unyielding posture. Ethan tried to use his old, commanding tech billionaire persona to bypass the desk, but Agent Vance simply stared at his rumpled clothes and desperate eyes with cold professionalism, refusing entry until Julian Renford, a sharp-eyed corporate legal mediator, authorized an escort upward. When the elevator doors opened into the sleek, marble-floored executive suite, Ethan saw Olivia standing near the panoramic glass, looking out over the concrete canyons of New York. The contrast between them was devastating. She was a portrait of serene power, while he was merely a hollowed-out ghost of his former self. The moment Ethan crossed the threshold, his remaining dignity shattered entirely, and he threw himself onto his knees, crawling toward the center of the room. He began to weep. Heavy, ragged tears of pure self-pity and desperation streaming down his hollow cheeks as he grabbed at the air near her feet, his voice a cracked, pathetic whimper as he threw a nyan sai lum. "Olivia, please, I beg you, look at me," Ethan cried out, his hands trembling violently as he groveled on the polished floor. "I was blind. I was manipulated by Chloe, by the stress of the company, by everything. I didn't realize how much you did for me, how you were the true genius behind every single success I ever had. I am nothing without you, Liv. Please, forgive me. Come back to Seattle with me, and let us rebuild what we lost. I swear, I will spend the rest of my life making this up to you." However, Olivia looked down at the pathetic spectacle of her kneeling husband, her face completely devoid of any anger, vindication, or Oan Hund. There was only a profound, crystalline Bintharn in her gray eyes, a quiet detachment that was far more lethal than any screaming fury. She did not step back, nor did she show a single flicker of emotion as she spoke, her voice a calm, smooth cadence that sliced through his desperate weeping. "Tôi đã cho anh cơ hội để làm một người chồng, nhưng anh lại chọn làm một kẻ phản bội," Olivia said, her tone as flat and heavy as a marble tombstone. "Thành công của anh là do tôi ban cho, thì tôi cũng có quyền lấy lại. You mistook my love for weakness, Ethan, and you mistook my silence for ignorance. I did not just build your software, I built your entire life. And now, I am simply reclaiming what was always mine." Before Ethan could grab her hem, Liam Sterling appeared from the adjacent boardroom, his massive 6'2" frame instantly casting a long shadow over the kneeling man, his fierce blue eyes locking onto the security team with a silent, sharp command. Liam signaled Agent Vance and his men, who immediately stepped forward, grabbing Ethan by his arms, and brutally yet efficiently truk Swartharn Rahortoanya, his desperate screams for mercy echoing hollowly down the elevator shaft. The corporate execution of Ethan Vance was finalized within the hours that followed. Inside the main conference room, Arthur Pendleton laid out the final legal decrees, and Barnhupdung Li Hon do Kiket, officially severing Olivia from the toxic wreckage of her past marriage. Ethan Vance stepped out of the legal battle, entirely stripped of his identity, Ra Diver Haiban Tai Trong, having lost every patent, every stock option, and every luxury asset he once flaunted. Compounding his humiliation, the federal courts finalized his regulatory sentencing, dictating that Ethan farchud tu nam antreo vikak saifam kwarnli tai ching trukdar, specifically regarding his illegal offshore asset liquidations, and the insider manipulation connected to his final, desperate cryptocurrency gamble. He was no longer a tech titan. He was a convicted white-collar felon with a heavily monitored bank account and zero market credibility. With the old empire buried, Liam and Olivia immediately pivoted to the future, channeling their shared brilliance into a devastatingly precise corporate maneuver. Together, they officially announced the thành lập một tập đoàn công nghệ. Tài chính mới mang tên Sterling, blending Olivia's genius in applied mathematics and logistics AI with Liam's absolute dominance in global investment banking. Operating under this new powerhouse entity, they capitalized on the bankruptcy courts, executing a series of highly calculated, lightning-fast distressed asset acquisitions. With surgical precision, they thao tom lai tuan bo nyung fan tai sarn sach kor kong ti ku kor Ethan, including the valuable regional server hubs, the warehouse infrastructures, and the lucrative federal defense contract that Ethan had left paralyzed. They bought it all back for Mukzar Rare Mat, pennies on the dollar, completely purging the Vance name from the architecture and integrating it into their new, purebred corporate dynasty. Olivia was no longer a ghost in the machine. She was the undisputed, public matriarch of a multi-billion-dollar global empire, standing side by side with the man who truly valued her mind. The soft, rhythmic melody of a string quartet floated through the crisp coastal air of the Hamptons, New York, where an ancient, ivy-draped stone castle stood proudly against the backdrop of the Atlantic Ocean. Motnam saw the dramatic collapse of the Vance Empire. The estate had been transformed into a breathtaking sanctuary for a long-live Armapngwaitroy wedding. Towering arches of white orchids and pale pink roses framed the manicured lawns, where the absolute elite of American high society, from Wall Street titans to international diplomats, gathered to witness a union of true equals. Standing near the altar, looking exceptionally sharp in a tailored charcoal tuxedo, was Reverend Thomas Bradley, a 70-year-old family friend of the Sterlings, a tall, distinguished man with gentle silver hair, a warm, resonant voice, and an aura of profound wisdom that had comforted Olivia through her darkest times. When the heavy brass doors of the castle swung open, a collective breath caught in the crowd. Olivia xuất hiện lồng lấy trong chiếc váy cưới màu trắng tinh khôi, a masterpiece of French lace and silk that flowed elegantly around her slender silhouette, her dark hair adorned with a simple, shimmering diamond tiara. Tay Trong Tay Kung Liam Sterling, whose intense blue eyes burned with deep, emotional pride, she walked gracefully down the aisle. They were the absolute embodiment of power and grace. They were Kung Cheer La Vo Chung, Makan La Nhung Kung Su Huan Hao Nyut, whose joint venture, Sterling and Sterling, had already expanded into European and Asian markets. Đưa tập đoàn mới lên, tầm cao quốc tế, as an unstoppable global juggernaut. While the joyous celebration reached its peak on the East Coast, the stark reality of absolute karma was playing out thousands of miles away on the rainy, gray streets of downtown Seattle. In a cramped, claustrophobic studio apartment overlooking a noisy alleyway, Ethan Vance sat slumped at a metal desk, his disheveled appearance a tragic reflection of his total downfall. At 35, his once sharp athletic build had softened. His hazel eyes were hollowed out by exhaustion, and he was dressed in a faded, generic polo shirt, working as a low-level software consultant for a third-tier tech firm where no one cared about his past glory. The small room was suffocatingly hot, shared only with a stray, half-blind tabby cat named Buster, a 7-year-old animal with a notched ear and scarred gray fur, who only stayed for the cheap canned food Ethan could barely afford. Ethan didn't even notice the cat's quiet meow, as his eyes remained frozen on a massive, high-definition digital billboard outside his window. The screen flashed dazzling, high-society news coverage of the magnificent wedding in the Hamptons, showcasing Olivia's radiant, beautiful smile and Liam's fierce, protective embrace. A wave of crushing, unmitigated bitterness washed over him as he stared at the woman he had so foolishly discarded. Looking at his cheap, empty apartment and his monitoring ankle bracelet from his ongoing probation, Ethan Queet Ngung trunks at Hoi Hun Moon Mang, finally realizing with absolute, agonizing certainty hắn đã mất đi báu vật lớn nhất cuộc đời, the brilliant mind and loyal heart that had built his entire identity. Back at the stone castle in the Hamptons, the late afternoon sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in breathtaking strokes of vibrant crimson, deep violet, and warm amber gold. Liam took Olivia's hands in his large, warm fingers, gently wiping away a single tear of pure happiness that had slipped down her porcelain cheek. With a fluid, reverent movement, Liam reached into his pocket and brought out a rare, flawless, emerald-cut pink diamond ring that caught the dying light of the sun, casting a soft, romantic glow across her face. He slid the heavy band onto her finger, looking directly into her deep gray eyes with a lifetime of absolute devotion as he spoke his thang wind clearly for the entire gathering to hear. Anh đã đợi ngày này 10 năm, và anh sẽ dùng 100 năm tiếp theo để chứng minh rằng em đã chọn đúng, Liam declared, his deep baritone voice vibrating with an intense, unshakable sincerity that made Olivia's heart swell with boundless joy. Olivia smiled, her entire being filled with a profound peace of knowing she was finally cherished by a man worthy of her soul. As the crowd erupted into a deafening roar of applause and cheers, Liam pulled her gently into his arms, and Bofim Kate took bang wat nu hon ngot ngao jui bao choi huang hon ruk ru New York, sealing their fate as partners in life, love, and an eternal empire built on truth. As we watch the dust settle over the broken empire of Ethan Vance and the beautiful dawn rise for Olivia and Liam, this story leaves us with a gentle yet profound reminder for our own daily lives. True strength never needs to shout from the rooftops or boast on a stage. Real value lies in humility, integrity, and how we treat the people who quietly support us when the cameras are turned off. In our fast-paced world, it is so easy to get blinded by superficial success, much like Ethan did, forgetting that the most precious treasures in life are trust, loyalty, and genuine love. When we choose to step on others to build our own thrones, we are only constructing a house of cards destined to fall. Let us learn to cherish the silent anchors in our lives and always walk with an honest heart, knowing that the universe has a beautiful way of balancing the scales of justice. If this story touched your heart or gave you a moment of reflection today, please share it with your family and friends who might need this gentle reminder. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below and subscribe to the channel so you never miss our next gathering around the campfire. May God bless each and every one of you, watching over your footsteps, protecting your families, and filling your homes with peace, love, and absolute truth. If you believe in the power of karma, honesty, and divine justice, please type Amen in the comments below to receive these blessings. Thank you for listening, stay safe, and see you next time.